Mark Grayson, the main character of Invincible. We see him rise from an amateur to a strong-willed and powerful superhero in the show. At first barely able to handle any serious threats, to being able to toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful Viltrumites in the latest season. But in the comics, Mark rises to even greater heights. He becomes the Emperor of the Viltrumites and possibly one of the most powerful characters in the entire universe. So, it begs the question, just who could kill Emperor Invincible? Starting out with the definite, it's his wife, Adam Eve, another of the very small handful of most powerful beings in the Invincible universe. Her mastery over matter gives her the edge in any battle, especially when she uses it to her full advantage. She's able to completely reshape the atomic structure of any matter as long as it's not sentient. In the Adam Eve special, we see her turn a paper book into solid glass. She turns the wool hoods of two would-be robbers into solid metal. Of course, we also see her begin to develop her signature pink energy, which she uses to augment her fighting skills and martial prowess greatly. With these two skills, she shoots straight to the top of the strongest heroes on Earth, especially as we see her develop her powers over the seasons. She goes from fighting alongside the Reformed Guardians to being able to take on Conquest by herself, even if it's a short-lived fight. But her development doesn't stop there. She fights alongside Mark and the Coalition of Planets in many of their battles, even fighting at the very end in the Viltrumite War. All that to say, Adam Eve is incredible, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what she is capable of. Eve's powers are awesome. Being able to reshape matter entirely is a god-tier power when used effectively. So powerful, in fact, that Eve has limiters placed on them so that she isn't too overpowered. But those limiters can break. Under certain circumstances, when her body is damaged heavily or a high level of stress occurs, her limiters break and she can access the full extent of her powers. In her unbridled form, she glows purple and pink, and her eyes shine with that brilliant energy. She can use her powers on anything, sentient or not. She was powerful before, but now she can completely reshape anything or anyone. If she were faced with a powerful enemy and her limiters broke, she could potentially just take away their powers, or turn them into dust. She says this much in the Adam Eve special, that she could completely remake the people who experimented on her and killed her real family. The second time we see her use the power, she comes back from the brink of death, fully healed, and hits Conquest with an energy blast so strong it disintegrates his skin. In the comics, after Mark becomes Emperor, we see her even regenerate from death by old age. That's right, Adam Eve is so powerful that she is effectively immortal. I think she's one of a very small number of people who could actually pose a threat to Emperor Mark. Given her incredible powers and the fact that she is his wife and the mother of their child, he wouldn't want to hurt her, let alone kill her. The battle would be almost one-sided. If Eve broke her limiters, she could simply erase him from existence, or depower him completely. The second entry on her list is similar to Eve in that their powers are greater than what they at first seem. It's Alan the Alien. Alan, when we first see him, is no great threat. In fact, he's not much stronger than Mark in Season 1, and Mark is definitely not that strong. His powers include flight, super strength, and some mild telepathy. Oh, and the ability to get much stronger every time he is brought close to the brink of death. We first see this ability in full action when the Viltrumite scouting party finds him and beats him so bad that he was almost certainly dead. But he is rescued and put into intense medical care. This is where we see it for the very first time. Once he is fully healed, it is very clear that he is much larger than he was before, and way stronger. So strong now that whereas before he was unable to pose a threat to even a single Viltrumite, now he is able to take on multiple at once. When he breaks Nolan out of the Viltrumite prison ship, he and Nolan fight two Viltrumites at once. More than once, Alan needs to fend off both of them at once. While he might have had help, this is a stark contrast to his previous encounter with Viltrumites, where he literally couldn't even defend himself. It might seem like this ability is a one and done kind of strength boost, but it happens again in the comics where the Coalition of Planets headquarters is attacked. Alan barely survives the explosion and is once again rescued by intense medical care. Coming back from the brink of death and once again much stronger than he was before, he now sports scale-like skin that acts as a super armor. And before, we had to try to beat a single Viltrumite, now only the strongest Viltrumites posed any real threat to him. This is late in the comics and the last time we see this power in full effect, but we come back to him hundreds of years later and it seems to have happened at least a few more times, or he just got much stronger as he aged. We don't really know, but what we do know is that as leader of the Coalition of Planets, he is probably the only character in the Invincible universe who could wage war against Mark, because in order to truly beat Emperor Mark, his empire would need to be beaten as well. Alan himself might be a match for Mark, but Mark has the weight of his entire empire behind him. Alan is the only other being with an army of that magnitude and the power to match Mark's. Now, as we come to the end of the very short list of characters in the Invincible universe who pose a threat to Emperor Mark, we turn our attention elsewhere, starting with the Marvel universe. That's right, we are going to other universes. For the sake of keeping it entertaining, we are going to exclude characters like the one above all and Eternity, because that wouldn't be much fair of a fight. Starting out with the fan favorite, Hulk. Dr. Bruce Banner is a mild-mannered scientist with a lot of trauma at the hands of an abusive father. But when he is hit unshielded by gamma radiation, he transforms into the terrifying Hulk. It's probably one of the most well-known superhero origins of all time, one that predates the Invincible comics by about a whopping 40 years. The Hulk as he first appears probably wouldn't be a threat to even Season 1 Mark. He's strong, sure, but he's only really super strong by the standards of the time. Current day Hulk, however, is a different matter entirely. Depending on the comic run, Hulk's strength varies wildly, so we are gonna go ahead and pick one that would be the greatest threat to Emperor Mark, that being World Breaker Hulk. After being tricked by the Illuminati into being exiled into space, Hulk lands on the planet Sakaar, a brutal war-torn planet where every day is a fight for survival. Hulk's incredible strength is pushed to even greater heights here, as well as his intellect. Unlike his regular savage form, Worldbreaker Hulk retains a lot of Bruce Banner's intelligence. That makes Hulk able to strategize and plan rather than just punch his way through every problem. He conquers Sakaar and becomes its de facto leader. Now, seemingly content with his exile, the worst happens. The spaceship used to exile Hulk explodes, killing his wife and seemingly unborn son. This is the true turning point of Hulk, where he gets the moniker Worldbreaker. He travels back to Earth with his army, the Warbound. But first he stops at the moon, where he faces off against Black Bolt, a character of such ridiculous levels of strength that his voice alone could crack a planet if he used it to his full power. He whispers the word enough, and it sends a shockwave forth so powerful that any other character would have been instantly beaten. Hulk, being the ultimate badass, tells him, "I didn't come here for a whisper. I want to hear you scream." He is later seen holding Black Bolt by his collar, clearly defeated. He then takes his revenge on the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Gamma Squad. All entire teams of incredibly powerful superheroes. Worldbreaker Hulk is so unbelievably powerful that he sends shockwaves across an entire continent in just a single step. That, combined with his increased intelligence, should prove to be more than a match for Emperor Mark. The battle might destroy more than a few planets, but Hulk is the strongest there is. Staying in the Marvel Universe, but moving away from brute strength and onto a more intellect battle, it's Reed Richards. While the original Fantastic Four were little more than campy heroes who took on the villain of the week, but later iterations of them go so insanely beyond that it's almost strange to look at their humble beginnings. Most of all, the default leader of the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards. While he does possess the power to stretch his body into any shape of form, and is a very capable fighter and strategist, his real power comes from being the smartest man alive. A very short list of some of his incredible inventions are an insanely powerful clone of Thor called Ragnarok, a machine that was capable of taking you to the afterlife, a gun that could level all of New York in a single shot called the Demo Gun, and finally, the Solve Everything Plan. Reed Richards of Earth 8155 has literally solved every problem that reality has. No hunger, no diseases, no wars, and literally every other problem that world faces. While not a particularly powerful creation, it just shows the kind of inventions Mr. Fantastic can come up with if he puts his mind to it. Coming now to one of the most incredible inventions, the bridge. A gateway of sorts that allows for multiversal travel. He uses it to assemble the Council of Richards. Because what's better than one smartest man in the world? An entire council of them, the greatest think tank in comic book history. The Richards would likely have come up with and constructed a way to beat Mark before he even gets anywhere near him. Be that through a weakness or a virus, Richards would have thought of it all. But I think we can have one more character from the Marvel Universe. We've had Brains, we've had Brawn, now it's time for something a little weirder. We are, of course, talking about Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff is a powerful sorcerer in the Marvel Universe. While she mainly inhabits the X-Men side of the comics, she occasionally branches out and becomes a threat to the entire world, with her base level abilities being frightening enough. Powers like mind control, image and hallucination projections, as well as able to comprehend. Later in the comics, her powers escalate way higher than what should have been possible. Perhaps in one of the most famous comic arcs of all time, time, House of M, she says the words, "No more mutants," and 98% of the mutant population instantly lose their powers. That's right, all it took for Wanda to defeat countless teams of heroes with incredible powers and abilities was to say a single sentence. Even with her normal powers, she's an incredible threat, but with reality warping powers on that level, she would never even have to meet Mark. Just say the magic words, "No more Viltrumites," and that would be that. Mark's entire empire would be nothing more than humans with advanced technology. That is a bit of a cop-out, as even without that level of power, Wanda Maximoff could wipe the floor with Emperor Mark. In a face-to-face showdown, she could turn his entire army against him, make him hallucinate nightmares beyond his wildest imagination, have him begging for death all before even trading a single blow. Probably one of the scariest witches in comic book history, but now let's close the book on Marvel and move on to DC. Starting out with, of course, Batman with prep time. Only joking it is, of course. None other than Superman, probably one of the more interesting matchups on the list. The big blue Boy Scout shares a lot of powers with the Viltrumites, except he's better at every single one of them. If Mark can fly across galaxies in weeks, Superman can do it in seconds. If Mark can bench press the world, Superman could lift the galaxy with one hand. We could go on and on about how Superman is better, but how about a little bit of proof? Superman's powers come from the sun. In one of his more famous runs, Superman flies directly into the sun to absorb as much of the solar radiation as he can, and he comes out stronger. To compare this to Mark directly, when he fought with Thrag on the surface of the sun, his skin melted and he required urgent medical care to survive. That's a pretty shocking power disparity all on its own. And Superman has so many more it could be a video all on its own, but we'll just cover a couple to get the message across. He held a book with infinite mass inside the metaphysical realm. Infinite. Caught a mini black hole like a baseball and compressed it into nothing to prevent it from destroying Earth. And finally, dragging an entire galaxy on a chain, one of the most ridiculous yet symbolic feats in comic book history. While Superman might hold back a little bit at first, he would still beat Mark. Even with the entire Viltrumite empire behind him, he wouldn't stand a chance. It wouldn't be a fair fight. Not even close. That's DC's raw strength covered. So in sticking with the theme, how about their intelligence too? A being so smart, it's literally in the name Brainiac. A character with experience in even dealing with Kryptonians. Brainiac makes a habit of collecting entire civilizations in miniature form. His intelligence and technology outclasses anything the Viltrumite Empire could throw at him. He could analyze Mark's DNA, something he did with the Kryptonians, and isolate weaknesses in the Viltrumite genome, including their susceptibility to viruses. By deploying the weakness through drones or nanotechnology, he'd never even have to get close to Mark. But in the event that it came to a battle, Brainiac has some strength to match his wit. He often employs the use of gravity weapons, controlling artificial black holes and dimensional disruptors. He could drop a micro singularity on Mark or lock him in a time dilation bubble where every second is a century. But most likely, he would just shrink the entire Viltrumite empire and keep them on his shelf to collect dust, like a sad, forgotten children's toy. You know what's next. We've done strength and smarts. It is once again time to get weird. It's Dr. Fate, a bit of a less popular character, so here's the rundown. Kent Nelson was a son of the archaeologist Sven Nelson. As a child, he accompanied his father on an expedition to the valley of Ur in Mesopotamia. There, they discovered a mystical tomb containing the spirit of Nabu, an ancient and powerful lord of order. Kent accidentally awakened Nabu's spirit, and the process killed Kent's dad, leaving Kent as the inheritor of Nabu's will and power. Armed with the helmet that housed Nabu's essence, he became Dr. Fate, an incredibly powerful sorcerer. One with reality warping abilities, he can teleport, manipulate, time, and control matter itself. Emperor Mark's abilities are all physical. Dr. Fate's powers are conceptual. While Mark can fly and punch his way through a lot of problems, Dr. Fate can bypass any of that by controlling reality. He could potentially just freeze time, ending the fight before it even begins. Or, much like Angstrom Levy, just wish Mark away into another dimension. Mark has almost no protection against any form of magical attacks. Fate could disable him in any number of ways, like severing his mind-body link, leaving him completely paralyzed and trapped in his own body, or drain his very soul. A chilling end indeed, but in the event it came down to a physical one-on-one, Fate still has the upper hand. He is capable of creating infinite copies of himself, and he also shares a lot of Mark's abilities to a lesser extent, like flight and strength and speed. But where it would come down to it is Dr. Fate's ability to see into the future. He could see Mark's first move before it even happened, or even as they are fighting, see each and every attack before it even came. And Fate could just adjust his plan and attacks accordingly, creating counter spells or runes that would neutralize Mark at any given moment in the entire fight. Every second of the fight that does happen only happens because Dr. Fate allows it to. That covers two of the most popular comic book universes and how they would take care of Mark. So how about we make things just a little bit more interesting by moving away from comic books entirely into just one singular character from anime. You all know exactly who I'm talking about. It's, of course, Goku. Actually sharing a lot of similarities with Mark, an alien being raised on planet Earth, hailing from a warrior species who conquered planets, but that is all about they share. Goku was raised by an older man who we refer to as Grandpa. At first, the little monkey boy was trained in simple martial arts, learning from his grandfather and the great master Roshi. His fighting prowess was incredible even as a child. He grows to be so much more. Our reintroduction to Goku at the beginning of the Dragon Ball Z series, he is already seen as the strongest character in the show, taking on 2 villains from his own race. He's not even overpowered here by any means, able to fire incredible energy beams, the now world famous Kamehameha, and summon the Spirit Bomb. He beats them, but only just. He at this stage would be no match for even Season 3 Mark, let alone Emperor Mark. But Goku's strength continues to grow throughout the entire series. Instead of covering his entire journey though, which could be a whole series of videos and of itself, let's stick to the most important power jumps in his story. The first major jump being Super Saiyan, the legendary power he unlocks in a fit of rage against his fight with the mighty Frieza, a planet-conquering megalomaniac with incredible transformative powers of his own. It's one of the most legendary battles in all of fiction. This power-up increases Goku's strength, speed, and energy, as before in the fight he struggled against Frieza. But after transforming, he wins the fight pretty quickly. We could cover the next 2 power-ups, but they aren't really huge jumps in power. So let's jump right to Goku's ascension to godhood. Goku, through means of a special ritual, allow him to ascend to a level of strength that matches a god of destruction. Even if it's only for a short time at first, Goku takes that power and increases it even further, managing to give that its own form of Super Saiyan. At this point, he would be more than a match for Emperor Mark in terms of raw strength, battle tactics, and speed. His instant transmission allows him to essentially teleport, and the beams and blasts of energy he can now fire shake the very universe. But that's still not the end of Goku's incredible rise to power. He has one more current power up, that being the power of Autonomous Ultra Instinct, a form so powerful that he doesn't even have to think to fight. He just reacts. So fast and powerful that he surpasses the power level of even the gods of his own universe. Emperor Mark might be powerful, but Goku is so far beyond him now in terms of strength and experience that the fight would barely even interest Goku, whose love for fighting is well known. And that is the end of our list. Did we miss anyone? Leave a like and comment if you have any characters who you think could kill Emperor Mark. And if you want to know everyone who could kill Adam Eve, then watch the video on the screen now.